Yeah, I'm afraid Max is on the wrong place. Damn it.
Oh, can you not hear me?
Yes,
okay.
I didn't have the recording going. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me know if I do anything wrong. Okay, this is my first time on this again. So my experience in newspapering goes back, to 1978, which the landscape was totally different back in those days than it is now. And what I've done since then is published the Mountain Times for 20 plus years. Sold it and enjoyed the business so much I got back into it by starting the High Country Press in 2005. And at that point we started with a regular weekly newspaper, a free newspaper for the Boone, Watauga, Avery County area. And at that time we also started a magazine, High Country Magazine, and a visitor's guide, High Country Press Visitor's Guide. And that's how we got started in 2005. And then, of course, in 2008, we all experienced the Great Recession, and that turned the world upside down. And it really turned the world upside down for publishing, because obviously we depended on advertising to support ourselves, and that fell off dramatically. We've hung in there. And coming out of the recession, the landscape had changed in the world of marketing and the world of how people got their information. And that's when the internet started becoming something that we all looked to find out what was going on. And in 2012, we dropped the printed weekly newspaper and went strictly to our website, hcpress.com, but continued on with our printed magazine as well as our visitor's guide. And then, last year, the pandemic hit. So it's been an interesting 10 years, 15 years doing this with High Country Press. And now here we are talking on Zoom. So I find it interesting that the first Great Recessions certainly changed the landscape in journalism, as well as how we get our information. And now the pandemic has certainly have changed us again, as we've all come to adopt online communications and this Zoom meetings, and how we interact with each other and how we get our news. So I'm not quite sure what you guys are looking for. I mean, what do we do here? We basically try to get eyeballs because, again, we depend on advertising to support our efforts here. So I guess like anybody who's writing or doing a book, you're trying to get that message. You're trying to get as many readers as possible. And in our case, our readers turn into to advertising possibilities. So the more readers you have, the more eyeballs you have, the more likely someone's going to respond to advertising that you either run in your magazine, in our case, a magazine, or on our website. We're a very small office here. I have two writers here. We have an art director. These folks do an amazing amount of work to keep up with what's going on. We depend on press releases and people getting in touch with us to let us know what's going on, as well as going out and finding stories to write about. And that's just like the good old days. It's interviewing, taking notes, and coming up with a story. And in our case now, posting it on our website or turning it into a magazine story. And on the graphics end, the magazine is still somewhat done like the good old newspaper days, where you're now composing them on a computer and then sending those pages off to a printer, and it magically appears in a truck a week or so later. And for website publishing, it's something I think everyone's starting to learn now as they're doing their blog posts and finding out ways to communicate on the internet. So we're basically following those steps to get our news and information up on our website. We have 2,000 to 3,000 to 4,000 people visiting us every day on our website, depending on what the news cycle is. So that's quite interesting. And, you know, we enjoy being a voice for the high country. We don't have a political agenda per se. We enjoy telling stories and trying to tell both sides of the story and let readers come to their own determination on how it unfolds. We are and were big into letting people know what kind of events are going on. And of course, in this past year, the events have pretty much disappeared. So, so that part of our reporting has kind of slacked off quite a bit, but certainly there's been alternatives to people still trying to hold entertainment events, basically through Zoom and things like that. And we're just hanging in there and trying to have a good time. So I don't know if there's a question or if anything I can expand on.
I wanted to ask, you touched on it, I think, Kim, but do you have a digital media manager, or is, like everything else, is that just one of the many hats that you and your staff wear in addition to all the others?
You're right. We're all digital managers. Yes. And again, you know, website publishing has become so easy. We use WordPress. You've probably heard of WordPress. That it's fairly simple after that first day of, you know, scratching your head trying to figure it out. But everything we do is repetition. You know, it's copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste for the most part. So yeah, anybody can pretty much figure out if they're used to a computer on how to publish online through online software programs. So yes, we all play our part to get our stories in.
Thank you.
In the program yesterday with Foggy Pine Books, she said that I think she said 80% of the printers in the country had gone out of business. And now there's like 9 giant printers who are printing all the world's books. And so the turnaround time, you know, when something sells out, she's having to wait forever to get new copies of the titles in. Have you seen, what kind of impact have you seen from COVID?
Well, COVID and just a general slowdown in printed materials. We use a company called, used to be R.R. Donnelley, which is one of the, you know, big national printing companies that specializes in printing magazines as well as anything that resembles a magazine, from catalogs and stuff like that. They went through a bankruptcy process. The printing facility that we were using for our 15 years of printing closed down this past summer. So we had to find another printer to do our printing. You know, fortunately in the magazine business, printers still understand that a June magazine has to come out in June. So we're not seeing big delays in getting our publications back. But yes, that world of printers out there is shrinking for sure. But for us, knock on wood, we're okay. We're still getting our magazines printed on time.
Oscar.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm interested in the journalistic aspect of this. How are you, usually reporters are running around trying to find stories. How are your reporters, how many reporters do you have, first of all? And then how are they able to find stories, have they been able to, in this pandemic?
We have two writers on staff and access to freelance writers that we use for our magazine stories. And you know, part of being in this business, you're just kind of aware of what's going on. You know, there's town council meetings coming up. There's a new road that's going to be built. There's, you know, unfortunately some car wrecks and criminal type things at work. So we're, you know, we kind of got our ears open, looking for those stories, following those stories. We depend on people reaching out to us and letting us know what's going on. And then, you know, we kind of develop story ideas on our own, just kind of aware of what's going on, you know, and that could be as simple as there's a snowstorm coming, you know, so let's let readers know about what we know about that. There's, you know, end of the winter season, how much did it snow? You know, it's again going back to entertaining our readers, trying to keep them informed and entertained, and having them visiting us as much as possible. So our challenge is to fill that niche of being that newspaper that people look forward to find out what's going on locally. You know, as you know, Facebook's the best place to find out what's going on these days. So that has really become a place where people share news now in real time. So of course, we're following that as well. So, you know, we follow the elections, of course. You know, we you know, when that process is happening, we try to let our readers know what the candidates are speaking about, issues like that. So yeah, it's a big bag of things that are out there that we report on and look to report on, and some things we miss. Again, we're a small office, so we do miss some of the stories, but again, we do the best we can to keep up with it.
How would you distinguish your magazine paper from the Watauga Democrat and anything else? Is Mountain Time still around?
Yes.
Still around, yes. You know, we're all in the same boat. You know, and you know, years ago, it wasn't uncommon for a community or a city to have a couple of newspapers, one in the morning, one at night, maybe a couple of competing ones. So, so yes, we're both doing the same thing, basically, both chasing the same stories for the most part, and both trying to get advertising. So there's not that big of a distinction between us. They're more corporate owned, of course, by a national media company. And we're locally owned right here. So I guess that would be the biggest difference. Yeah, so, you know, we're all adapting to the new landscape of the publishing world, and trying to keep up with the new trends, and keep on rolling.
I knew one of the owners of the Jones Media who bought Watauga Democrat and Mountain Times years back. And then the Jones family sold it after owning the Jones Media for 99 years. They sold it to another company that was also involved in family-owned media. And I remember looking them up. I can't tell you who they are now, but they are interested in buying up small newspapers all over the country, and they're very conservative.
Yes, they are. And it's an interesting trend that they're doing that. They may see something that other people don't see. And, you know, there was some issues and commentary about would they have a different voice for the Watauga Democrat once it was bought. And I don't think they have, you know, done much to influence their message or their tone. But yes, I think it's Adams Media or Adams, something like that. So yeah, it's interesting what they're doing, and what value they see in small town newspapers, or maybe it's just that they want to keep that going on. You know, it's going to be one of those things I think we'll really miss when it's completely gone. You know, you know, I was a Charlotte Observer reader every day. I don't buy the Charlotte Observer. I haven't seen a Charlotte Observer in a long time, you know, but do check them out on websites. But, you know, I think losing that local media voice is going to be a sad day, because I think a lot of what's out there now is filtered through someone's eyes, or filtered through how they feel about a subject or something like that. I think for the most part, community newspapers are still trying to be fair and balanced for the most part, and not taking stands one way or the other. And again, just trying to report the facts. And I guess we hear this a lot now, and let the reader determine for themselves on how they feel about the story. So. Anything else? I don't. Anybody want to be a journalist?
Well, Marilyn there has a PhD in journalism.
Oh, yeah.
Communication, not journalism. I was never a journalist.
Well, you've certainly seen communications evolve quite a bit in your lifetime, I'm sure, right?
Well, you were talking about local papers. I was back to the Weekly Reader when I was in school.
Right.
How much I enjoyed getting that every week.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And how much fun it was to work on the school newspaper back in those days as well. But so what's your take on what's ahead in
I don't know.
world?
I don't know. Social media is pretty damaging.
You think so?
Well, you're using it as a source.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel the same way. It's going to be interesting to see how social media plays out, because it can be hijacked. And as we're all finding out, used for a lot of different purposes that I think, I guess we could see coming, but I guess we all hope that wouldn't happen. But it is what it is.
Are there any kinds of stories you're not interested in, or you don't want to print, or?
We have, and it's really something I've seen over the years is like that I'm going to go to the newspaper. I'm not getting any answers from the police department. I'm not getting any answers from my boss or my corporation or, the university. So I want you to tell my story. I don't want you to use my name, but I want you to solve this. And those are ones that are tough to tackle, because there's always two sides to every story. And a lot of times that person's coming from one point of view, typically very angry. And we're not a court, we're not there to make a determination on if this person was wronged by whatever situation they were in. Typically, that should go through a legal process, a criminal process or a civil process. Then it becomes news. And then it's something I think, in our case, we feel more comfortable reporting on. So that angry phone call about my mail not being delivered on time is not a story that we're really going to pursue, because they just want us to fix it for them. We can't fix, that's not our job to fix things for people. We just hopefully report on it and then let the powers that be or let the community go down that road. Again, we're local. We get, hundreds of national press releases in our emails. And typically we, just for space and interest, shy away for most of those. Some of them we will take and localize the story. But besides that, we just enjoy telling people stories, and that's a whole range of things, from people winning awards to people having medical issues that maybe need help or something like that, to people retiring, to someone turning 100 years old. So, yes, sir.
I want to, yes, you are certainly still filling that hole, but I want to come back to that conversation that you and Marilyn were having, because what saddens me is what I guess, I don't know, maybe you refer to them as regional papers back in the day when the Raleigh News and Observer, the Charlotte Observer were Pulitzer award-winning regional papers. And if I see a gap now, I can remember when Asheville, Gastonia, Salisbury, Winston-Salem, Greensboro, Charlotte, Raleigh, all had reporters at the General Assembly, for example.
Right.
And you were able then to feed out through UPI and AP and get news from the State House and from the General Assembly. So just wondered if you would share your observations, because it seems to me the gap between the Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal are growing, and you seem to be still doing well in the local niche. But to me, it seems like there's a huge vacuum now in that middle ground.
Oh yeah, and that it goes back to the money problem. I mean, to hire a reporter to be in Raleigh for the Charlotte Observer is like quite a bit of money. And if you picked up a Charlotte Observer lately, it's 10, 12 pages thick. There's no advertising.
Yeah.
So, for print media, that advertising certainly has dried up, and that translates into, drastic cost cuts to keep their business running. And, the dirty little secret in online publishing is there's not a whole lot of money to be made on web ads. People, it's the web. Everything's supposed to be free. And again, it's an eyeball thing. How many eyeballs do you have to your website that can translate into, advertisers getting return on their investment? And then Google and Facebook rule the world. I mean, they're making all the money, and there's not a whole lot left over because they've got it figured out. They've got the scale and all those employees to make it work. So yeah, and I think we're seeing that across all industries, that the big guys are really squeezing Main Street right out of business. And I don't know what that's going to mean for that next generation. We're all going to be staring in a Zoom and ordering from Zoom, It'll
be like the old Wile E. Coyote cartoons, everything he ordered was from Acme, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And now time is up, it's amazing. So yeah, it's scary. But, as we were younger and the end of the world was coming when we were younger, we figured it out. So I have faith in this next generation that's coming along. They'll figure it out too.
Right?
I don't know where I'll fit in. I'll be a spectator about it.
How do you think you compare to the Mountain Times? I remember when you owned the Mountain Times, and I used to think that was such a good publication compared to the Watauga Democrat. And I was always referring to it as when people would come applied, for example, to university jobs, it would be the Mountain Times. I would say, look at the Mountain Times to get a better picture of what the community's about. And then it got bought, and then you started yours. So how do you feel like, is there competition between yours and the Mountain Times? And how does your newspaper, your digital version, look different to people's eyeballs?
We're chasing at the same advertisers basically. So that's what's going on. And again, the Mountain Times grew up in that golden era where tabloid newspapers were finally accepted. The free newspaper was something that was not a dirty word anymore. We had a staff of 20 people because we had 100-page papers every week. And again, that it was those advertising dollars that helped support that staff and that moment in time. And, thank goodness I sold the Mountain Times probably at the right moment, because it wasn't too long after that, the whole newspaper formula just started fading away as online media started picking up and taking off. And that's not to say, it doesn't work. I mean, we all still look at ads when we pick up a magazine or a publication. I think when you pick up a magazine, the first thing you do is flip through and probably look at the ads, and then go back and look at the stories. But the younger generation has grown up with their looking in their phones, and that's what they feel like works, and that's what they're going to use. So that's what printed media is kind of up against, is this new generation who didn't grow up so much with newspapers and the power of that advertising reach, and are just now used to the digital world. So, I guess the Mountain Times is 24, 32 pages. You can only get so much news or entertainment, that many. So when we were 100 pages, we covered it all, and we had a great time. It was a great ride to experience that, but those days are gone.
I've been wondering through COVID, I would like to see an obituary page for businesses, for local businesses. So I don't know if that's something that you could make happen, but I have really little, very little sense of of what has happened to our businesses this last year.
And that's a great idea. And you know, it's amazing how many folks have hung in there, you know, and I think the ones that are disappearing are those really mom and pop, you know, one person landscaping or something, you know, something like that. And they're just so far off the radar, it would be hard to know that, because there's not a funeral home that businesses go to, which is where we get our obituaries now. And, you know, something that people aren't so proud of either. You know, I think it's kind of tough to give up, you know, so it's not like they're going to give the media a call and say, hey, just wanted to be part of the business obituary to let you know that we didn't make it. But yes, that is a neat idea to.
Or maybe a business hospice page.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. So, and, you know, and I think through this pandemic, there was, you know, I mean, we were all stuck at home, but there was certainly an outpouring of local folks, I think, trying to support local businesses. And you saw that through fundraisers and you know, it added attention to, especially for restaurants, you know, getting to go meals and stuff like that. So, but again, you know, we're going through another moment in time where I think we're going to come out on the other end of this, another brave new world. And that's going to be interesting to see what the landscape looks like over the next couple of years and who's left.
Yeah.
Well, and just like journalism, some of those businesses probably don't know if they've died yet or not. So many of them are in that limbo of closing now, but are we done? We don't know yet.
Right.
And, I think this summer we'll start to see answers. Yes,
and you know, it's the entrepreneurial spirit is just something else, you know, and as I'm out there talking, and I get to talk to a lot of businesses because I'm, you know, we're doing stories about them and working with them on advertising. They, you know, we don't give up. You know, it's just like, well, just tell us what the rules are and we'll figure it out, you know. So this pandemic was a little extra hard because the rules were changing every day and every week. But yeah, entrepreneurs aren't one to give up too easily, and they adapt and they'll try something else. I mean, that's that spirit. So so yeah, you know, we all may be dead, but just don't know it yet. So because we keep carrying on.
Well, we're glad you're hanging in.
Well, thank you very much.
You can tell at least this is the last stand of folks who still like journalism.
Yep, yes. So, all right. Anything else?
Well, I've also been wishing for more details on things like money flows. So, for instance, Airbnb collects money on every reservation in North Carolina and pays it to North Carolina. North Carolina then pays it to Watauga County or to Boone. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which. You know, and is that actually happening? Is Airbnb actually remitting, and is the state actually remitting? And then what is Boone doing with that money?
That, you know, that money goes to a TDA. You've heard of a TDA, right? So, so yes, I think, and you know, it's interesting. That's a big subject that's starting to raise its ugly head on many different levels. But you know, it's an occupancy tax. That occupancy tax goes to the local TDAs typically, and those tourism development associations are tasked with promoting the area for the most part. So that money's not going into a general fund or into a tax base. It's going to an association that's tasked with promoting the area and also doing some projects, you know, with that money. But right now we're going through a real estate boom. In fact, we're working on a story for our April magazine about the real estate boom. And part of that real estate boom is happening because number one, people can work from home, which means they can move to the mountains and still work from their Raleigh or Charlotte office. And then that when they are not there, it's become very easy to rent your house through Airbnb. So the business model of buying a home is becoming such that you can spend a lot more time in your mountain home, and it's a lot easier to rent it out. but then I guess your neighbors aren't so happy with that. As who knows who's going to be showing up that weekend next door to be, renting out your place. And it's, it's kind of straining some communities and neighborhoods as this is becoming more and more popular. So
have you finished that story?
Still working on it.
Still working on it. Well, we were on a Democratic lunch thing one time. This was before the elections, and is it her name? Pertalion Carrington? Is that one of our?
Yeah, Alton Taylor. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she happened to mention, we were just talking afterwards, and she happened to mention that she was seeing a lot of clients in her practice of women who were moving here, sight unseen, buying property on Zillow, whatever, through photography. And we know this is happening. Mm-hmm. So she might be somebody you want to talk to.
Yeah, it's been really interesting listening to the real estate folks who have certainly been through their boom and bust as well. Mm-hmm. And last April, they were like everybody else, wondering how they were going to feed themselves, and now they're looking at buying jet planes. And 7 short months. So.
Well, I think you're on top of this area is, I think, about to go into some serious stretches of change, and you referred certainly to one of them there, Marilyn. West Jefferson's getting ready to do a visioning session to look at where they want to be in 5 to 10 years. The growth, we've been discovered, there's no question. I think one of the odd twists to the COVID is they all thought we were safe up here, and people have been coming. I know, speaking to the town manager in West Jefferson, revenues for most of the businesses here, which were dead until about May, were actually up year over year. So yeah. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks now are seeing this as a very desirable place. So I think, Ken, you're going to have a lot to mine in those stories between the tensions of the old ways and the influx of newcomers and the different perspectives. I think will be a source of a lot of different stories, from Airbnb rentals to land use, across the board.
Traffic,
It'll be a lively time. Yeah.
Don't forget the climate migrants. They are coming.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the Blowing Rock TDA has launched a almost $100,000 study that is supposed to find out what that balance is between residents, locals, tourism, and summer residents. So there's a lot of people looking forward to seeing what
hope they figure it out.
Conclusion is.
I said, hope they figure it out and they can tell the rest of us. Right?
Yeah, it's going to be, it'd be interesting to see.
Are you saying that is Boone doing this as well, the TDA?
It's the Blowing Rock TDA, and of course, they're a tourist town, so they certainly. I think Boone has more issues with the college and students and how that interacts more so than tourists. But Banner Elk, Beach Mountain, and Blowing Rock are all looking forward to hearing about the results of this, because the ski slopes have had record year. People on Beach Mountain, it took them a half an hour to 45 minutes to go a mile down the road from traffic jams.
Oh my God.
Banner Elk, traffic like they've never seen, which is translating into dollars for businesses, which is good. But that's not the quality of life that everyone's coming here for. So where's that balance? So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And then the other part that goes into the real estate boom and more people coming here is, the workforce is getting priced out of local housing. Issues go on and on and on. So yes, we'll be busy reporting these things as they unfold. And if we ever get back to normal.
I think we will, and I'm looking forward to that article.
All right, well, good.
And our vaccination program seems to be way ahead of anybody else I talk to in Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Georgia,
I have friends in Asheville who are in the tens of thousands on the list. And here, and as you say, we've been great up here.
Very organized.
Yes, which is another one of those news stories we've been following. You know, it's
Okay.
gone from gloom to better to, and you can see it on y'all's faces right now, to like, wow, you know, we're doing pretty good. So yeah, that's what we do.
We have friends who got vaccinated this morning over at the new rec center.
Right.
And she said there were quite a number of Spanish speaking vaccinators and Mexican looking individuals getting vaccines. And, you know, that's the first I've heard of that too.
Yeah. And I think that they've opened up vaccines to restaurant folks and grocery store folks. So I think you're starting to see more of the working class folks show up for that now, once they got all us old folks out of the way. So yeah, and I guess that does give you a picture of what the high country is starting to look like.
Well, I was on a Zoom last night. I was telling this woman who was telling us this about, it was about the Hispanics in high populated areas of North Carolina with Hispanic populations. And they were talking about this is the time when the farm workers are coming back.
Right.
And they are already training them with educational videos in the flights and before they even get here about the vaccines. And once they get here, they're going to have these massive farm worker vaccination centers.
Yeah, well, as they know, that's their workforce, and those plants don't wait to be harvested. So they're covering their butts by making sure their workers get vaccine, because they don't need to be shorthanded. And that part of the workforce for sure. So, and Zoom.
Can't get a vaccine on Zoom, sorry.
But you can always find out about a lot more than you used to be able to, I guess. Yeah.
I need to go too, but I want to say thank you, Ken, and thank you, Cheryl. This has been really interesting, and hope to